Hello YouTube, my name is Colin, and today we have a very special review for you guys today. We will be doing an in-depth review on my cosplay of the Warden from the video game For Honor today. However, besides going over the actual armor pieces of the costume, we'll also be looking at the historical aspect of the Warden's armor to see if the Warden's armor is actually historically correct or historically incorrect. So we'll go from there. So let's begin. A quick disclaimer though, I am no means an expert in medieval armor. I do love history, I do love medieval art and armor, and I do love the weaponry and all that warfare has to offer over the past centuries. So that's all for me to kind of indulge into, and that's what I love about it. If I happen to get some kind of piece of armor or history wrong or incorrect, please do kindly let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to correct myself and any kind of information that should be needed or should be corrected in that sense when I do explain it. I do have my trusty laptop here that goes over what I've written historically, and also is also my script. That way, anything I get wrong, I put all my information and historical analysis into this little document here, so I kind of know I can pull back from if I get it wrong. All the images that we'll be seeing during the video will be put in the link down below, so you can get a little better look at the historical pieces of what I've described and what I've mentioned thus far from either of these for armor pieces or historical manuscripts. So without further ado, let's begin with the actual review. So to start things off, after a lot of different historical references and historical analysis, I've kind of narrowed it down to quite a few things where I think the Warden may be part of human history. However, there are, again, a lot of things that the Warden does wear that can range from different time periods in history, so it's a little bit confusing to decipher where historically the Warden does originate. But I have kind of narrowed it down to where I think the Warden may originate in history, and I think the Warden might originate from the 14th century, more specifically the mid-14th century, right around 1361, during the Battle of Visby. And I'll go into more in detail why I think the Warden originates from that specific time period in that specific battle, more down the line of the video. For the review, I will start off with the lower half of the body, going from the feet upwards to the lower section, and then we'll continue on for there to the midsection, the torso, the arms, and of course lastly the head to wrap things up. So to begin, for the footwear for the Warden, we have a pair of suede leather boots. Nothing too special about these. However, suede boots during the 14th century weren't common. However, Europe, as most of the boots were made from simple animal leather that had a pointed tip and were usually about ankle to calf in length. Unlike my boots that go up to around the knee, and also that's how the Wardens do go up, they cover the knee. Also, the Warden does not wear any sabatons, which are basically just lamed armor pieces that cover the foot. Historically, 14th century knights did have armor protecting the foot, either from mail, sabatons, or a combination of both. Moving on to the main leg armor for the Warden, and he wears shin guards. Now, shin guards were indeed used throughout medieval Europe, but it gets tricky around the mid to late 14th century as knights were better seen wearing full greaves, which would encase the lower leg to fully protect the leg from sweeps or hooks from enemy weapons. These shin guards are made out of warbler and craft foam. As you can see here, I did spray paint the inside, and they are again riveted with some brass pins on the inside, again with leather suede buckle straps to keep that in place, as it is seen in Warden's armor. So these are pretty lightweight, they are flexible as well, and they do a pretty good job of looking the part of being metal shin guards. What I did was I layered it with warbler again, using a craft foam over it, and I used wood glue to make the surface very smooth and shiny. This little piece here, little, I guess, fluting detail is made out of puff paint, and I used the center ridge to use my fingers to create that center ridge that is seen in the game. Pretty standard, it's pretty good. They are really lightweight and really comfortable, but let's move on. Next, above the shin guard, we have knee guards. More specifically, these are known as paulings. Sadly, the Pauline that the Warden does use do not have joint protectors, right? Which would be right around here. The buckle is on the outside, so there is no joint protection here, or actually you would say call that a wing. That is commonly seen around 14th century armor. That would again protect the joints of the knee that from any kind of sweeps or any slashes that would kind of basically cripple the wearer of the armor wearing this. You can see this on the future armor of the Warden. They do have the actual wings of the actual Paulines, but again we're going over the original armor set, which do not include those. So these are just basically just your regular typical knee guards. As for thigh protection, the Warden does not have any. It would have been more historically accurate to add a cuisse for thigh protection, as they would definitely be used during the 14th century, either as full-plated or splinted in a brigandine fashion. As for the pants, these are just simple, Goodwill white pants that I found, and I ended up dirtying them up a lot to give them that extra aged look, to give it more detail, and the fact that these been in the use by the Warden, they've been kind of dirtied up and quite used a lot. So nothing too special about these. These are just really just regular pants. Next on to the actual arms for the Warden. The Warden wears, for his hand protection, he wears what it looks like to be fully fingered articulated gauntlets from the 15th century. 14th century hand protection would still be full fingered articulated gauntlets, but rather more as an hourglass shape. Similar to the Lawbringer's gauntlets that you see in, again, the For Honor game. Although 14th century knights were also equipped with lower cannon braces to protect the forearms, basically. These the hand protection here are made of warbler. Again, each and every piece here is made out of black warbler and craft foam. These are just basically just dual layer. For the finger pieces, actually, these are basically just 2 layers of black warbler that are meshed together, again wood glued to give it a nice smooth shiny surface. The rivets here are all just basically Google eye dots, and all again the riveting or the fluting details are of puff paint. So they're basically just regular garden gloves that have weathered and detailed as well to give that extra aged look. As well, for the forearm protection, these as well are black warbler and craft foam that are meshed together. Again, fluting details that are puff paint, as well as rivets here that are googly eye dots. A belt section that help kind of connect it all together and cinch it down to my forearm, as well as a leather piece to help kind of hide all the gambeson underneath. In the game, it's actually a metal brace that connects the forearm pieces. I later found out, as a great example from another video of another YouTuber who actually did a real steel Warden armor, that the leather actually helps tuck in the gambeson armor, but also it has a little bit more comfort than what a metal piece would be. A little more cumbersome and hard to get onto the forearm. So the leather armor helps it kind of encase better, which I found, and it makes it a lot easier to actually take on and off when putting on this costume. So that's a really great advice that I took into consideration when making this costume. So kudos to that. That's a really great idea, and that's for hand armor. As for the elbow protection, things get a little weird. For the right elbow guard for the Warden, he wears a basic elbow cop. However, cops were more known during the 13th century rather than the 14th century. But I mean, I'll let it slide for this one. As for the left guard, I'm not quite sure what it is. The best description I can give is it's a spiked bracer with an added winged protection. You can also consider it, calling it a floating elbow guard. The articulate pieces act as a form of upper and lower arm cannons. For the upper arm, again, the lower bicep area here. However, it creates massive gaps between these parts here when they articulate it out. Because basically, when you're shadowed here, it's fine, but when you bend your elbow, you bend your arm, you can see where the gaps really take on that consideration. That kind of leaves you kind of a weak spot when actually you're articulating it. So it's a bit confusing. I'm not quite sure on the actual design of this, but it is what it is. The left guard also has, again, like I said, the winged elbow protection. However, it should be facing inward. Most wing protections often target the area where it is most vulnerable, most likely the weak spots. And in this case, like when I said the paw lane needed a wing protection to protect the joints, this wing protection needs to be facing inward to protecting the inside of the elbow here, where it can be greatly exposed and I guess harmful to where the enemy can strike it. This piece does counteract that, where it does protect the joints. However, I would liked it better again if the wing protection was facing inward to give it more protection of the actual joint itself. But I know it's kind of weird. That's just how the design works. The actual spikes, I'm not quite sure what they serve really. I guess you can elbow someone in the face, but again, they're just there for added design like they are in the game. Not quite sure what the purpose of the spikes actually serve. They can serve a deflection as well as enemy strikes that kind of deflect off of, but again, it's on your elbow, so I'm not quite sure where they would be. Elbow guards, specifically more during the 14th century, are known as coutures. Coutures can be either large for jousting or lamed and riveted together to the upper and lower cannons for a nice fitted look. Another example of the elbow guards for the Warden that would have been a better choice than what we got would be coutures that can be seen in the opening cinematic and game art, as they are the matching set and they add more protection to the actual elbows and forearms. These elbow guards are made out of craft foam and warbler, as well as the elbow piece here. These are all craft foam and warbler sandwiches. Again, everything here is all warbler and craft foam sandwiches that are man encased. The spikes, I believe, are craft foam. I did not actually. I think they are actually warbler pieces that I did form to make the actual spike shapes. Maybe wrong. I think they were craft foam pieces that I made into actual spikes, but I think they're warbler because they're so sharp. Anyway, that's it. And these leather straps here really just kind of hug my arms, really, because in the game they don't show that there are any strapping connected to the left arm brace. It just free floats that. When I first designed this, I did not add any straps until I first put it on and actually thought that the articulation would magically happen on my arm, which I later found out that was a big nope. So I ended up actually adding these straps here to help actually with the articulation of these kind of areas here. There is a bit of Velcro here on this side here to help with putting it on my gamson to kind of locate where to actually place it and go from there on my elbow. So finishing up on the Warden's arms, we have the shoulder guards. Now for the shoulders, the Warden does wear some spalders, but very large spalders. They're not quite pauldrons, as pauldrons wouldn't be introduced until the 15th century. 14th century knights would have been lamed spalders that would be tightly fitted around the shoulder and that are riveted to the upper cannons. The right spalder is normal, while the left has kind of like the stopping plate to protect the face and neck from thrusting attacks. The Warden's shoulders are articulated. They're articulated here, and as well as the lame sections that protect the traps. They do articulate and they fold, and they are able to work with in conjunction with the shoulder when I do wear them. Same thing for the left side. The left side shoulder guard, these parts are articulated. They are riveted here as well by those brass connectors pins. They're kind of camouflaged in, but again by these googly eye dots that are kind of connected and riveted there. As well as the lames here are articulated, and they can kind of scrunch in together to work with in conjunction again with my shoulder. So that's really neat, the idea. And the inside, you can see here that I use the techniques of Velcro, and I use this elastic band to kind of help with the articulation, as well as the lames kind of working together and scrunching if I need them. I kind of did hide the actual brass pin sections with some tape because they kind of interfere with the chainmail when I do put them on, and they get kind of caught. So that's what the tape is there for, to kind of stop that from actually happening. And the same thing is again on this side for the right spoiler, where again it's all connected via strappings and riveting as well. You can see how that really just kind of works together and scrunches when I need to that, and really just works. Maybe it works really nice. It's a little thing I came up with. These are all again made of black Worbla and craft foam connection sandwich pieces, and again they work really well. They form what I need it to be. They are wood glued to give them that extra shiny surface, and they are weathered to give them again the extra detail that it needs to be, that it looks like in the game as well. Next, we will discuss the main torso area for the Warden. As for the main armor protection that the Warden does have, the Warden wears a simple gambeson. The gambeson I do have here is it was originally a pullover gambeson that I ended up cutting down the middle and removing a little bit more length to fit around my waist better, and I hand sew that all back so all the cotton does not expose. I know this middle section does look ugly. Please don't mind that. That was me actually trying to figure out where the placements of the actual straps go. Again, don't mind the two buckles are the same, and the two buckles here are different sizes. This was made in 2018 during Hurricane Florence, where I had no power, so I ended up actually having to deal with what I have at the time. So hand sewing and having the belt buckles, what I have at the time, just worked fine, and they work great, and you won't really need to see them per se because you'll be hiding all the chainmail and the tunic and actually over coat of plates armor on. So this is basically it. All the weathering I did myself. I ran it in dirt, lots of mud, and I spray painted a lot of the areas to give it more of an aged look. And again, like I said earlier with the elbow guard, I did add a little piece of Velcro here that is again hot glued. I know that's kind of bad, but hot glued it here so I know where the indentation is where I need to place that left elbow guard, so I can know where the placement that placement needs to be. Over the gambeson, we have a male shirt. Although this is not hobart length, it's about the length I would say of your average t-shirt. In this case, if you look really closely, if I hold it up, it looks more like a crop top, basically. This was because at the time when I actually purchased this chainmail, I was using it for my Dark Souls Knight Artorias cosplay that ended up actually removing a lot of the chainmail because of the excess weight that I didn't need. So when actually removing a lot of the lengths of the chainmail, it ended up being a lot shorter than I expected. So this is why it looks like a kind of a crop top almost, but you really can't tell underneath because the sleeves are just the right size, and this serves a multi-purpose use for my Warden as also my Viking Assassin that I do, of course, use this chainmail shirt for the actual look. Now, like I said, this is not actually a hobart length because the game does not suggest it is a hobart. More or less, this is actually the length of known as a habergeon, which is the shorter version of a hobart that does not extend. That extends more of a t-shirt look. The sleeves are shorter. They don't extend down to the elbows, and again, they don't extend down forward to the actual thigh protection. Haberts do include that. They also include the midsection where the groin area is actually cut in the middle for added actual maneuverability. So this works as a habergeon, not a hobart. And these are all butted male shirts. Again, this is not ideal for the 14th century as well. They would be riveted, but again, this is what I had. This is cheap, and it worked good for detailing and actually making it rusty when I needed to for actual added details. Slightly below the habergeon, we have a male groin protection skirt thing. Not really historically accurate, but it's what the Warden has, and it is what it is. These are all riveted here to a leather belt that goes around my waist. It looks a little bit odd, especially when it hangs down low. You can see right here all the differentiating the different sizes here. I was running low on chainmail at the time, and I didn't feel like ordering another pair of, another sheet or shirt of chainmail to facilitate actually it's a small groin protection shirt. So I salvaged what I could to make a skirt, and it added these little flanks here that actually they're double layer warble pieces, again with the googly eye dot as rivets, and it works just fine. You can't really tell when I do have it hanging around the groin section, and it works just fine. In the game, I think these actually are 6 flanks rather than 5. Again, the lengthwise, I had salvaged what length I had left, and it works just fine for the costume what I have. Going over the halberd actually is the tunic section. Now, of course, in the game it suggests that this would be a full tunic, but in my cosplay, I guess, expertise, there's no really need to make a full tunic when you only really see the lower section of the tunic anyways, so this is why it looks like basically a tunic skirt almost. The tunic pieces themselves are all hand sewn together. This took the longest to actually hand sew everything. All the leather, all the accessories here, the cross medallions, and of course the over sheets are all hand sewn. So this took a very long time using hemp cord to tie everything together, and really just made it extra detail. On the inside, the actual base of the tunic is a quilted padded fabric that then layered over some red fabric, and again more layering and actually hand sewing them all together. The royal lion was first spray painted on out of a template that I cut out, and again I went back and hand painted all the lion again to make it more of a thicker and have a more of a standout design. Again, I did weather everything, added little notches here where it looks like little cuts. It's kind of a little splatter design as well, aging it a bit. And these little pieces here are again double layered warbling with the googly eyes as the rivets. The continuation of the red line is on both on all 4 sides. On the back of the tunic, we do also have these suspenders. These are basically here just to hold up the tunic from sliding down my waist if it's actually falling off. So these come really great and handy for the cosplay for what I need. All right, so we are working our way to the main armor of this costume for the Warden, and here's where things start to get a little spicy. So you're probably still wondering why I chose the mid 14th century, more specifically the Battle of Visby, to originate where the Warden kind of is historically. The reason I chose the Battle of Visby was the overwhelming artifacts and armor that were found, archaeologists, of the actual battle itself, and many of the artifacts that they found were the coat of plates. Now, the coat of plates and the brigandine tend to be kind of used universally, but the brigandine itself, especially toward the end of the 14th century, was more fitted around the hips of the wearer and was more comfortable to feel like you're being more protective. It was more rounded, it was more fitted to the waist, and it became again more fitted and more comfortable to the wearer itself. The coat of plates, however, like the ones found in the Battle of Visby, are inherently flat, and this can be seen in the Warden's coat of plates, as is a very flatted front. The base of the actual coat of plates itself is another padded gambeson. This gambeson that I bought was again cut and put back together and hand sewn to fit the needs of both me and the look of the Warden in the game. So again, this was another hand sewing project that I did during the hurricane in 2018. So a lot of this was re-sewing where I cut off of the excess length around the shoulders and the waist area here. I hand sewed that on first, and there's actually some tubing left over from the original piece that it came in when it shipped, so I kept that actually to use on the outer pieces of the gambeson here, the coat of plates. And again, I hand sewed them all too, and the reason for hand sewing is because A, there was no power, and B, I did not have a sewing machine at the time, so hand sewing was a pain in the butt, but this was well worth it because it gives the illusion that this was all a very aged and, I guess, weathered and very used kind of costume that, again, the Warden does kind of personify in the game. Both hand sewing those two things together and an additional hand sewing of hemp cord that went around all the tubing on the outsides of the actual armor. So again, a lot of hand sewing, a lot of 10 or 11 care went into making this costume. But again, I'm proud of the way it looks. Hand sewing, do it. I know it's tedious, time consuming, but it's well worth it because it looks the part. It looks like it's going to hold up pretty good. The main armor itself consists of at least 6 plates, about 5 abdominal plates and 1 plate up here, as well as I guess I would call this a heart protector plate, as it positions right around the heart here. The tassets, or the tasset area, if you want to call it, has additional plates that protect the hips. As for the siding here, right around the rib cage area, the Warden just basically has a simple quilted, padded, fabric again. I guess you'd call this more gambeson if you want to. So that really consists of the sides where the organs, where Peacekeeper can really just dig those daggers right into that area right there. So that's really nice. The back is nothing special either. It just basically consists of buckle straps to help it all tie together on my back. Again, originally the gambeson did not have this. I went back and cut the middle section out so I could put it over the front first and have it kind of buckle in the back. Again, hand sewing the back of the middle section so the cotton does not expose, and adding the buckles to reinforce that when I do have usually my brother to help me put this on, because I can't get this by myself. More hand sewing around the back here, around the tubing areas, as well as additional, tassets right here in the back. There's only one I couldn't fit 2 here because I was running low on the leather, as well as space for adding 2 extras. So the one just works fine, and you won't be able to see him from the back of the actual back plate. I didn't realize this until after I made the costume. That the armor, the gambeson back here actually consists of another additional layer of leather on top of here on the back of the gambeson. But it seems to work out fine, as really historically also that the 14th century knights didn't really particularly care about the back, armoring themselves in the back. There was really more about protecting the front. So it works out fine in the end. So this coat of plates and material that we have here, the Warden carries, to put it simply, is terrible. Now, this is due to the absolutely massive gaps that all the armor has when you actually put this on, what the Warden does wear. Anything that you can put onto this will indeed still hit you, even if you try. Now, gaps here, gaps right in the abdominal section right here, gaps right here, of course, where the gambeson is. And again here with the massive gapping of the side sections here with this very thin padded gambeson fabric that the piece can come in and have 28 stab wounds, basically. So, I mean, again, that's really just a big problem. All this is a big problem. The only saving grace that I would say about this armor, because it is a coat of plates, and because I'm kind of basing this around the mid 14th century, right around the Battle of Visby, is if the Warden does have additional hidden layers of armor underneath the coat of plates, as they are depicted in the actual coat of plates themselves, with just a layer of leather or linen on top of that. So I can see this happening. I can see this being the only saving grace for the Warden's armor, as it does have, as it would consist of additional lamed layers of armor or steel or iron underneath it, and he just added these on to say, hey, give me more protection. I want more protection because I'm going against these Vikings and samurais, whatever. That's the only thing I can say to help save this armor from all the gapping and all the catastrophe what I see here. So without butchering it, it looks good. It serves you well as the costume, but again, those are the specs about being during the coat of plates during this time of period. The armor itself does include a cape, again with the royal lion that was again spray painted and hand painted on by me to give it more a visual appearance. The cape was again weathered and aged by me. The tattered again. I used that tattered effect and used a lot of splatter and spray paint to kind of really get in that detail that has been aged and worn. Again, capes around like this that the Warden does have is not historically correct, as it should have been a surcoat rather than a cape. But the cape and the armor do include a belt with small mounts right here, which are basically just little metal ornaments that can be used to ordain your belt during the medieval period to kind of show your kind of wealth and power, which is a good effect, and that's what the Warden does have. But again, they are misplaced and some are missing, so it's not fully encased with all mounts. It's kind of a problem, but you know, it works either way. It doesn't, you know, bother me much at all. It's just a little historical inaccuracy. The belt does consist of a sword frog that can house my longsword in there, and it is fitted to that. So that's really nice to have there if I don't mind carrying it all that time. I can just put in the sword frog, and it's really right there. When putting this on, actually, the way the Warden's belt is actually set up is actually kind of unique in a way. It does have belt loops on the actual armor itself to help with, you know, the belt not sliding off. So in that case, the lower half of the sword frog section does include Velcro, where I can, in the end, Velcro this to the front, and it acts like you can't even see it, just like how it is in the game. However, this side is glued to the actual belt itself because I don't really care about the back that much. This is all really how it comes together on the Warden's belt buckle, so it works out pretty nice. So last but not least, we will be finishing up the review off with the helmet. So underneath the helmet, we have a simple mail coif. This is all button mail coif, so you know, this basically just protects the neck and protects the shoulders right around the back here, so it's really not too special. For the actual helmet the Warden uses, this is known as the visored barbuda or barboot helmet. The funny thing is, the barbuda helmet actually originates from the 15th century in Italy, so it's a little bit confusing to see the Warden using a possibly unhistorical helmet. Since the Warden, I think, is based around the mid-14th century, he likely would have been carrying a hound skull or pig-faced bassinet helmet. This was a particularly popular helmet around the 14th century, and actually into the mid-15th century, as it is also included an attached aventail, which was basically mail that was attached to the helmet to reduce the use of a mail coif, although you'll still be wearing an army cap or a servilier underneath. This piece of helmet is actually the only piece that is made of EVA foam. It's a little bulky. It does get kind of tight when you do put on the mail coif, but the actual design is actually not too far off from the actual look of the game. The only downside of this is actually the side profile. I'm not a big fan of the side profile. You can see it looks way too out of proportion, especially in photographs. It kind of bothers me a bit to see that right there. But the front view is actually quite nice. I like that really nice ominous look to it from the front, but again, the side profile is kind of a problem for me to have. The visor does kind of work, only for a little bit. It does kind of caught on the top here of the actual skull here. The helmet does have some buckles, does have some leather buckles underneath to help kind of cinch it down to my actual head. Now you're probably thinking, why make this out of EVA foam when they do indeed sell a full metal helmet that is based off of the Warden's helmet from the in-game? Well, going a little bit forward, we have here the kind of the references I've seen and people who have bought it and worn it. There's a lot of differences between. I see that because one of the main things I see from the helmet is you only have the cross sections on one side, but not the other. Which the Warden has the cross sections on both sides, not just one side. So that's the one thing I don't like, and I don't want. If I did buy it, I would have to go in and put the cross section in again on that side, which I don't have the tools to do. The other point I see that when I see that full steel helmet is because when you actually put it on and actually lock it down right here, the visor itself actually kind of lifts up like that. So it's not actually flush straight like it should be. The helmet actually comes up like so, which I don't like, and especially from side profiles, the visor just kind of lifts up like that, which again, like I said, I don't like and doesn't look appealing to me. So that's why I chose the route of making it myself. It works just fine. It does its job, and I don't have any problems with it. I might later go on and make the helmet out of Warbler like the rest of my armor, but for the time being, this helmet serves its purpose. As for the sword, it is your average longsword. It is a foam latex sword, so it is convention safe. It measures right around 49 inches in length and about 10 inches in width from the crossguard. So it's a relatively good size for the Warden. It's not too gigantic without it looking like a great sword like Highlanders. Now, I won't go into the actual fighting style of the Warden itself. However, you can go a little bit more in depth and watch a little bit more in depth video of a guy named GoGoDani. He did a really great job analysis of the actual fighting styles of the Warden. So his link will be in the description down below. However, I will quickly touch up on the stances of the Warden that he does you in the game. Alright guys, so far I will touch up on the Warden's stances real quick. Just go over how it works with the actual longsword in hand. However, first I want to express that, and also a disclaimer, I am not a practitioner of German longsword fencing. I'm just admiring the fighting style of the longsword fencing technique. So if I make an incorrect stance, or my hand placement is off, or I make a wrong move, or I say an incorrect name, again, please be mindful of that and just correct me down in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to correct any mistakes I have done during this portion. So to start things off, we have the Warden's low guard stance, which is known in English the plow guard, or in German the Flug guard. So basically, where you're holding it, and actually in the game, the Warden holds it quite like so, or more or less extended outwards like this. To have your dominant hand towards the cross guard and your other hand towards the pommel right here. So that way you can actually grip onto the pommel. That way you have a nice secure body. For me, when I'm in costume holding the sword, I like to brace the sword next to my body as close as I can. This does expose my shoulder pretty well. However, my sword is pointed in the direction of the enemy, so it does have a nice strong stance to it. Again, make sure your feet are nice and stable. You have one foot pointed toward the enemy and 1 foot back planted for stability. Okay, so like this. This is the Warden's low guard stance. Now, from this stance, you can do a lot of different ways. You can actually, from this stance, you can actually pull upward, which is known into an ox guard. So when you go into a deflection from attack, you go in and go into what is known as a ox guard, which is kind of this high guard right here. So like this. So you go into here, you go into an ox guard, deflecting it. And this works either way. If you're left-handed, right-handed, the position switches. Again, your main hand dominant on the cross guard, and again, your other hand on the pommel area. So this works either way. Step forward and go into an ox guard. This is your main deflection area right here. Of course, you can do other type of ways. You can deflect it upward, you can deflect it downwards. It's all up to your fighting style, which one you prefer, which one like that. For the high guard, the Warden expresses what is known in English as key guard, or in German, Schlüssel. So actually, there's two types what I want to show you guys. Now in the game, the Warden showcases the key guard as basically you're laying the hilt of the sword, the cross guard, and the main lower section of the sword right here on your actual forearm here, keeping your dominant hand toward the cross guard and kind of flattening it out like so. Alright, so again, the key guard looks like this in the game. Basically just kind of flat. You're pointing your sword at the enemy like so. This is how it is showcased in the game. However, this is incorrect. The more historical way to doing it is actually much like you held, actually put in a key inside a door. You actually lock the cross guard into your elbow area right here, while still connecting your hand to the pommel area where you want this nice and secure, because you're going to be mainly this is your main your main leverage area right here when you lock it into place right here. So again, your sword is locked and you're pointing it at the enemy. Your dominant hand is near the cross guard. Your other hand is gripping onto that pommel area. So this is the historical way of doing a key guard in the Warden stance. So like I said, that the key guard in game is actually incorrect. There's actually multiple versions of why it looks incorrect as well. Both, like I said, when you're playing the actual character as is laying the sword on the forearm, but I would say a more hilarious example is actually in the loading screen. When actually you can see it on the left side when you're actually loading in screen, that it appears that the Warden holds it both his dominant left hand, actually on the left side he holds his left right here on the pommel, and he's basically just resting the sword on the cross guard here. I don't understand this at all. If you're an enemy and you see this, like, okay, this dude has no idea what he's doing, and basically he gets to take his sword, just knock it right off, and you basically just lost your bounce, and he can just come in for an attack. Whichever side is your main dominant side, you always want your main dominant hand to be closest to the cross guard as possible. This could be either for your right-handed or again for your left-handed. Again, focusing on which hand is your dominant side. And this could be either or for when I went into plow guard or into Slushal key guard. So you want those kind of crossed hands keyed in and locked into place for nice kind of follow-up attacks or deflections. Holding on to the pommel allows for, again, like that rotating motion for when you go into an attack or a deflection. So, for example, in slow motion, you want to, again, use that momentum of the pommel that you're holding on to out of key guard and stepping forward into deflection or attack using that momentum as a pointing motion, because it mainly is a pointing motion. So you use the pommel as more of a drive and a rotating motion. So again, I'm not very good with my left hand, so we'll see how it goes from there. So you use that pommel and force that up there. Again, that could be good into an ox guard as well, if you choose to. So guys, that is it. That is everything I have to say about and going into discussion with my Warden cosplay, as well as the historical analysis of the actual armor itself. I really hope you all enjoyed the review and actually the video, and I hope you also learned a lot from it as well. This took a really long time to actually make and construct to actually find all the historical information needed for this review. Again, like I said, all the information, all the images that were featured in this video will be linked down in the description below, as well as some other YouTubers that have inspired me to create this video for you guys to show. So give them a lot of your support, and be sure to subscribe and follow their work. So they did a really great job of inspiring me to make this video for you guys. Again, if you have any questions on the armor or the information I provided for you guys in this video, please comment down below, and I'll do my best to reach out to you and express what I have to offer. Again, going on, feel free to like the video, feel free to comment, and feel free to subscribe to my channel if you like to, if you see more of this stuff. Be a really great help to the channel. But anyways, thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.